Hi, Sean Foster here again. A week ago, one of my members in my big group asked for a little bit of input in terms of productivity. Understandable right now because we're in the quarantine and our routines have really flown out the window. We've got a whole new set of paradigms, a whole new set of challenges and mental blocks in our mind at the moment. It is a fascinating time that we're living through at the moment. And productivity is one of those things that we really want to get on top of. But the reason why I've called this the myth around productivity is that really there's a big myth around productivity. And many of us have tried, most of us try and improve our productivity, and sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. Usually we look back after a period of time, whether it's a day, a month, or a year, and we say, oh, shit, that flew out the window, that didn't quite work. What can I do to get better? So I have tried to drill down to itemize some things that I do, that I teach some of my other clients as well. And it is always good to be reminded of these. So let's go through them quickly. First of all, I'll look at productivity in two areas. The one is systems and the one is mindset. So if we jump into systems, we talk about time blocking. Number two, routine. Number three, automation. In terms of mindset, we talk about discipline, accountability, and shadow values. So drilling that down, two parts of productivity, systems and mindset. We need to work on both of them. I'm going to drill into each of those very quickly to keep this nice and short. Time blocking. I don't know whether you do time block or you don't time block. If you don't, you need to. It is one of the biggest life hacks you can have in terms of improving your productivity. Nowadays, living in a very digital world, myself and most other people will be using a calendar. So I use Outlook. You may be using Gmail or something in Apple. Even if you're using a diary, a paper diary, go ahead and start time blocking. And like you see in my example over here, I've got different color codes for the different things I should be doing. I go and time block either a week or a month ahead, depending what the situation is. Certainly with a month lockdown at the moment, you can do a whole month there. What I've learned over the times and things to avoid is people tend to overcommit with their time blocking. So if time blocking is not working for you, there's a very good chance that it is because you've been overcommitting. And when I say overcommitting, I'm saying you're being too strict in yourself in terms of I have to do this and then I have to do this and I have to do this. Rather take your time blocking into bigger chunks of stuff that you have to do. And if you don't quite achieve it, don't beat yourself up about it. When I'm talking about being too granular, that's exactly the same thing. So don't time block from 10 o'clock to 10:15 and then 10:15 to 10:30 and 10:30 to 11:15. Don't chunk it down into 15-minute intervals. Much rather take a much bigger look at time blocks in terms of this hour or this 2 hours or this afternoon or this morning. Start making it very easy rather than starting off to make it very complex. Routine, that's a big thing that's for all of us has really thrown us out of the window. We are creatures of a habit. We operate best in routine. Even if you believe you don't, you do. And have a look at how your routine is now versus how it was. So if you normally wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, continue waking up at 6. If you normally go to bed at 10, go to bed at 10. If you normally have Saturdays and Sunday off, continue doing that. Try establish a routine as quickly as possible. A big part of this, and one of the routines that I do, and I've spoken to many people over the years about this, is activity scheduling. So with my activity scheduling, I actually start in the evening, usually half an hour before I go to bed. And what I do is I do a little bit of meditation and I think about what I have achieved in the day. I am grateful and I show appreciation back to that, especially in the meditation. And then I write down what are the things I'm needing to do for tomorrow. Not all the tasks, just one or two of the big things. Not so much task related. What are the big things I'm needing to do? The process when I'm doing that, I start getting everything out of my conscious thought and I put them down on a piece of paper in terms of what I'm needing to do the next day. So typically I would be using something like this, a post-it note, which I've always got around, or it's a card like this, and I write down the one or two big things I'm needing to achieve the next day. And then when I go to bed, my conscious thought is freed up. My subconscious thought keeps on working. I'm then able to sleep. If my conscious thought is still going and my brain's going around, I cannot sleep. So this is my chance of actually getting that off. The other part of that, actually right before going to bed, is doing some deep breathing exercises. it works magic. So all you have to do is breathe in 3 to 5 times, very, very deeply, very, very slowly. Hold your breath for the same period. Exhale for the same time period. So, for example, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds. That'll give you a peaceful night. A big part of productivity is your mind being mentally ready and prepared. Having a good night's sleep is critical. Once you wake up in the morning, have a view of what you've written down in your notes, and you'll be amazed how often that when you have a look in the morning, suddenly it makes a whole lot more sense, and you've almost solved the problem if it was a problem that you put down there. The second part is automation. Again, a big subject on that in its own. So I'm just going to drill on just some real easy wins here. Emails. What I recommend is you set up a filing system in your email. So when you have regular emails coming in from customers or suppliers or something like that, they are immediately filed into the filing system. So you need to set rules around that. The reason why you want to do this is you want to get your inbox as small as possible. And then when you have your dedicated time that you're going to be checking emails, which should probably be around twice a day, you just go have a look, see which inboxes are full, which files are full, and go read them. If you don't do this, your inbox just ends up filling up, and the task looks bigger than Ben-Hur. And then what do? You start forgetting things, you oversee things, and you think, oh, I'll get back to it later, and you just don't get back to it. And that's when the cracks start appearing. The other part of automation is delegation. So what can you delegate to somebody who can do a better job than you? Even now, when the economy is very, very tight, sometimes it's still worth challenging the task that you're doing, and what task can you give to somebody else to do, whether it's an employee or an outside contractor out there, that they can do more efficiently, and you can focus on what you should be doing, because your time is worth more to you than those particular tasks. So do an audit of what you can delegate in your life. Communication and project management, another big key part of that. The more you can communicate what you're doing in terms of automation within your company, within your team, and the more you can sort of project management that, so that everybody knows what they should be doing, the less fires you're going to have. So again, a big subject of its own. And systemization. For many businesses, you've been really, really crazy busy up until now. Now we go through a period that we feel a little bit like a possum in the headlights or a rabbit in the headlights. We're not quite sure what's going on. Very quickly, you need to adapt to that and start pivoting and thinking what you're going to do next in terms of your business. How are you going to be more productive? How are you going to generate money? One of the opportunities here is look at all the things that you weren't able to do, and what can you do? What can you do now? Can you implement a customer or CRM program? Can you start setting up an email nurturing sequence? Can you start pre-scripting your sales script or your prospect script and getting it documented? Can you go and develop a manual or Google Sites for your business so that you understand how it should be operating, and when somebody else comes in, they can quickly understand how it is going? So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do now, which you probably weren't able to do a month ago. In terms of discipline, again, discipline's a bad word. People have got a negative connotation around that, but really what we're talking about, discipline, is acknowledging that progress is better than perfection. So rather than either setting yourself up to fail because you make things so strict and difficult, have smaller goals that you should be achieving in terms of your productivity demands, and then just make a start and make it really, really simple, and just make a start rather than beating yourself up. Celebrate wins more than looking at the losses that you made. So again, I speak to people and they say, oh, they haven't done these 3 things on the list, but they've actually achieved another 4 things plus another 7 things that they didn't even have on the list. So our brain responds to positive endorphins. We want to have successes that release the endorphins that raises our confidence level and our enjoyment level, and we'll become more addictive to doing the productivity in a positive manner. Lastly on this one here is you need to believe in the systems. So if you find that your self-discipline is falling back, just go back to the systems, blame the systems, and by blaming them, I'm saying make them better. What can you do better within your systems to make sure that they are going to start performing for you? but have faith in them, have confidence in them. Accountability, it's a big one. So often as a coach, I get asked by a customer, what do you want? And they say accountability. Yeah, well, we all sell accountability. The reality is, and let's go through the key points about accountability is whatever it is you want to be accountable about, and whether it's productivity in this sense, it needs to be highly, highly visible. So you go back to the activity scheduling in your notes, make sure those are very, very visible. So often people look at my diary and they'll see little notes in there as because of my sticky notes, because I make them visible. While you're at home, you can take your notes and you can put them on the fridge. You can tell your partner about them. When you're having your team meetings over Zoom nowadays, you can talk to the team members about what is your thing that you're going to be doing today, and they can tell you theirs. So make it highly visible. Don't hide it away. Direct requests. This is a big thing as well. We need to be very specific on our accountability. So if I'm going to go to somebody and say, look, I want you to please help hold my hand and help me being accountable, rather be more specific around that and say, look, what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to lose weight, and I want to do more exercise, and I want to walk 10,000 steps a day. I would like you to check in with me every day at 8 o'clock. You can phone me or send me a message and ask me if I've walked my 10,000 steps, and just remind me, rather than just saying, look, hey, help me become more fit. So being direct and specific is really key. Ownership. At the end of the day, you can have an accountability partner or multiple partners helping you, and I strongly recommend it. But the ownership and the buck stops with you. You need to be self-accountable. So get rid of any blame game around that. You are accountable, and you need to be open-minded with that. And when I say open-minded, don't look for ways that you can blame something for it not working. Take self-responsibility and be open-minded to all the different ideas, especially if you've got an accountability partner. They may come from a different perspective. Rather than defending your status quo, just say yes, 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 and what else, and absorb and let them speak as much as possible so you can take it on and you can look at, from internal reflection, what you can do better. The last one, and this is an interesting one for me, shadow values. Not many people know about, and to be honest, I only started discovering them a year ago, and this is one of my areas of growth at the moment. So if it sounds a little bit it's confusing, it's because it's probably the area that is newest to me. And the first one, and some of these words you would have heard, the secondary gain. What we're needing to understand, what are the secondary gains in our mind? So when we're out there to try and do something, often we believe we're doing something for a particular reason. And we either stick with it or we don't stick with it. The ones that we do stick with are usually because we're getting some type of secondary gain, in other words, some type of benefit. And sometimes we just don't actually acknowledge that benefit. You take smoking as an example. Many people started smoking when they were in their vulnerable teenage years. And the reason why they started smoking, they put up with the pain and the disgusting habit around smoking, and you sort of coughing and maybe sort of vomiting, was the secondary gain was so strong at that stage for social acceptance, for being part of the team, part of the flock of sheep. As much as the teenagers all want to be independent and free-flowing spirits, what's stronger than that is they actually just want to be accepted and loved and felt or feel like being part of the community. That was a secondary gain from it, and that gets so well embedded in them that it actually follows them throughout their whole life. So there's many things that we're doing in life that we don't acknowledge what the secondary gain is, and we need to tap into that and try and understand. Sometimes your productivity is falling by the wayside because of that reason. So if you can see that on my screen, I don't know if you can actually see it on the screen. So that's my time blocking coming up in terms of my next task I should be doing in terms of time blocking. The next one is identity. So most of us have a whole range of values in our life. And if we reflect on them, we can probably say, look, we've got this value, this value, this value. Well, our identity is made up by those values. And identity is probably made up of the top 3, maybe the top 5 values. The problem with this is that some of them are shadow values. They're actually values sitting behind a value that's in front. We think it's these ones here, but it's actually our shadow values. So until you can start tapping and understanding your shadow values, sometimes we struggle to really identify who we really are. The problem again with that is that often we have triggers in our life that set us off. Either we get depressed, we get anxious, we get angry, we get frustrated. Usually, and when I say usually, it's 99% of the time, that is because our values are being challenged. If you having a tea party or a bunch of beers or whatever with some friends, and you're really sinking and everybody's on board and all having a great laugh, it is because at that time, at that moment, everybody's on exactly the same value train. Now suddenly you get somebody coming in who's from a different political party or ethnic group or cultural, and they just feel like they don't quite fit. That's our values being challenged, because their value system is different to your value system, and this is how our brains perceive it. So understanding your identity is all about understanding your values. Values tracking is part of that process, where we start understanding what those values are, the front values and the rear values, which are the shadow values. So in summary, and these are some takeaways that hopefully you can implement straight away. Number one, set up a routine for success that will lead to a habit. You again may have heard about becoming an expert. It's 10,000 hours. So we start playing a piano and we suck at it, but after 10,000 hours of practice, we actually become expert at it. Now, the more relevance that goal is, the more, when we start playing the piano, the more we think that this thing is going to be a lifelong thing, a long-term thing, the quicker we get to being that expert. That's really important, and I'll explain it another way. So if you go to, for example, you go to school, or you go to do some course somewhere, and let's say you want to learn French, and you want to learn French just because you think it's a sexy language, you want to learn French. So you can go and endure in the course, and you may pass or you don't pass. The difference is, and this happened to my sister, and this was German. So let's go back and replay that slightly. I tried to learn German in my 20s, and I went on a course, I went to some training, and I eventually gave up. It's too difficult for me. But my sister, when she was 19 or 20 years old, she met a German who she's now married to. She went on a German course, and she was speaking German within a few months, and she was fluent within a year. She had a different perspective, a long-term trajectory where the German was going. As much as I wanted to learn German, it just didn't happen. If I was going to be marrying a German lady, I more than likely would be able to speak German today. And it's simply because of the mindset of how long it's going to take. So that's really, really important. So if you think about, you're setting your 90-day plans now, if you think about KPIs and goal setting, if you think about the habit that you want to set up, don't have a short-term view. You have to believe this is going to be your long-term success. What is a long-term success to you in terms of value? Whether it's wealth generation, having a successful business, good relationships, you need to have that long-term view. But start setting up the routine to develop a habit around that. The second one, time blocking. So time block now, so you can start time blocking. Just start doing it. It's a no-brainer. Establish accountability partner, and whether that's a coach or mentor, a bunch of friends, but somebody who you know can effectively hold you to account. And if you need to coach them and help them to be better accountability partners, do that. So don't just ask them, give them specifics around it and set clear expectations. And the last one is understand and interpret your shadow values, and a whole lot of stuff around there with mindset. And if anybody wants to know a little bit more around that, or wants to do some specific work around that, please come back to me. I'm more than happy to do it with you. Anyway, hopefully that's of benefit in terms of productivity.